I'm ever yours, Alan Nathan, the militant moderate. Once again, this is the Oasis. For those who have an aversion to the left-right, black-white, two-dimensional approach, covering a plethora of things, out of the GOP comes a $2.5 trillion proposal to cut spending. Let the fighting begin, I say. Also, boy, talk about an avoidable faux pas. Hawaii Governor Neil Abercrombie cannot locate the document he said would prove Obama's citizenship. Now what? I can't blame the birthers on this one. This guy did it all on his own. This was completely unilateral in its foot-shooting glory. It was just completely unilateral. Anyway, we have before us, old friend of the show, David Pakman, liberal host of the internationally syndicated radio and TV program, The David Pakman Show, heard in over 120 cities and towns on DirecTV and Dish Network, and at davidpakman.com. He is, singularly, the finest talk host in the world. At least that's what his family says. David, good to have you back.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Listen, the House Republican Study Committee has this plan to cut spending, and I guess hopefully by extension the national debt, by $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, it would all come out of discretionary spending, meaning that defense and entitlement programs would not be vulnerable. But here's my question to you. While this approach, granted, only addresses 19% of the budget, is it the kind of beginning that's most plausible simply because it removes what is most loathsome to Democrats, cutting entitlements, as well as what's most objectionable to Republicans, cutting defense? What's your sense of it?
No, my sense is this is not the right way to go. I was disappointed. I have to say, I was happy to at least finally see what it is that Republicans want to cut. It was impossible to make heads or tails out of it from the pre-election interviews. Now that we've seen, for example, that Amtrak subsidies are going to be cut, right, the U.S. isn't behind in rail already. That's really going to help. That the idea of not funding $900 million for health care.
Well, hold it. I want to stop you right there with the Amtrak. You're right. Amtrak subsidies, we would be cutting $1.6 billion a year. But unlike the post office, we're not constitutionally required to keep this sucker going. I mean, at one point or another, an enterprise like this should have to meet the solvency standards necessary to justify its existence. Now, I mean, we could point to every area in which we might want to have a cut as having a laudable reason not to cut, but these are the times in which we have to accept the dynamics of competing interests, wherein unless we choose the least of multiple evils, the worst evil could choose itself. Isn't that fair to say?
Listen, whether the Constitution mandates that we should fund Amtrak or not is not the question. It's a question of logic. And if we are going to talk about logic, China now is going to reap the benefits of the third biggest solar panel manufacturer in the U.S. They're gone. They're going to China. So we're already behind on trains. We're behind on alternative energy. So logic, I think, needs to be involved in these decisions.
Well, hold it. Let me run some of these by you and get some specific responses. The Community Development Fund, $4.5 billion. You okay with that?
Maybe part of that. I mean, do I just have to say I'm okay with scrapping all of it? We can just come up with a long list. I think it's more important.
Well, I want to get a feel for what you're going. So you give me a maybe on that, right?
I'm giving you a maybe.
Okay. How about intercity and high-speed rail grants, $2.5 billion a year?
I think we absolutely need that.
All right. So you're no. That's a no. Okay. Amtrak subsidies, you're already a no on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. But wait a minute. What about the fact that they're operating wastefully? I mean, at what point does it become incumbent upon them to maybe start pulling in their own belt, just as the president expects the rest of us to?
Yeah, I recently spoke with Michael Dukakis, who was on the board of Amtrak, and we talked about this fact exactly, that Amtrak is not profitable on its own. The reality is that the government is, I believe, going to need to help get to that point. It's the same argument with solar panels. Right now... But
the government has already exposed itself as being grotesquely incompetent when it comes to financial management.
Then let's address that. Let's not just say we are going to volunteer.
Oh, dude, come on, man. That's like, wait a minute, dude, that's like you and I going to the KKK for enlightenment on affirmative action. I mean, we're going to the wrong source, are we not? At what point does it become incumbent upon these institutions to start functioning successfully?
I think that the KKK comparison is nonsense. I'm just trying to even get a word in edgewise here. And my point is The same argument that you're making about Amtrak has been made about solar panels, and the argument is right now it costs too much to make a solar panel relative to how much energy we can derive from
I agree with you on that. No. I agree with you on that, but I can't let you get away with the epitomizing of apple-orange comparison. Comparing the solar panels to the Amtrak doesn't work because Amtrak, unlike solar panels, is not going to be needing some other form of modernity in order to become more financially viable. Panels I can understand. Yeah, I know. You and I are in agreement on a lot of this. A lot of the new forms of energy, renewable energy, a lot of the green energy right now costs more than it generates in profits. So it seems regressive, and it's unfair to hold it to that standard because it really is going through evolutionary challenges. But Amtrak's a different story. It can't use the excuse of wanting modernity as a justification for not being able to run as a successful business. You got to agree with me there.
My point there would be this. How could Amtrak possibly be profitable when it's going 60 miles an hour on outdated track from where I live in Massachusetts to New York, in part because politicians from the Midwest who live in low population density areas can't see putting money into developing faster trains because they don't just really have the population to warrant it. We are never going to move forward unless we can fundamentally change that.
But nothing that you have said recognizes the need for this entity to execute some greater capacity for self-appraisal. You got some pretty swollen pension plans. You got some amazing packages. It's almost as if they become a privileged workforce. It's almost as if really we're incentivizing incompetence by waiving accountability because these guys know that they can year after year after year prove themselves insolvent, and it doesn't matter because Uncle Sam will pick up the slack. Are you not telling me you don't see any credibility in that observance?
I am 100% behind the idea that if we need to shake up management, if we need to make other changes, let's make them. But let's not take all the money away from an industry where we're already embarrassingly behind in the world.
We're embarrassingly behind, not because of the government, but because this business isn't able to function as a business.
Then go ahead and put some stipulations that will change that. I'm fine with that. I'm not saying we need to continue running it the exact same way. What I'm saying is we can't afford to defund it.
And by the way, when I made the analogy with the KKK, I'm just saying you don't go to a source that is the direct antithesis of the very thing you're trying to accomplish. The government has shown itself in breathtaking clarity simply unable to reconcile their books and prove a budget, just as the KKK has obviously comported themselves in a fashion that is completely devoid of any racial sensitivity. You have folks who are being prevailed upon to help out with a task that they have never had a track record of achieving. And to that degree, I think it's ill-advised to go to folks who've already proven they don't know what they're talking about in the area of focus to which we're referencing. Folks, stick with us. Got more with Dave Pakman. You are with Battle Line, Main Street Radio Network. I'm Alan Nathan.